Do you know what oil and gas is?
Yeah, oil goes in your car and gas fills up your gas to drive the car.
Do you know where it comes from? Where does oil come from?
The sky.
No, it comes from underground, Thomas.
Oh, underground.
Have your parents ever told you what climate change is?
Mm-mm.
I worry about how climate change will affect kids. I grew up in Winnipeg. What will growing up here be like if there's no more winter? I worry about climate change, but then I still pump gas like everyone else. I think most people don't deal with the reality because they're too busy trying to get by. But that doesn't make it go away. It's still there, under the surface. I have known Chad for years, but I didn't realize that he worked in the oil field until just now.
What was it like making the shift from doing road construction to working in the tar sands?
Uh,
Big sigh.
there's nothing to kind of prepare you for the first drive down that highway. The smells in the air, the massive tailings ponds. You get a feeling here, and it's just, I did personally. What I started doing was working on the large pipelines for Enbridge that were the main routes through Canada and the United States. You know, being a high school dropout and not having access to jobs, etc., that were paying decently, and having, you know, a young life coming into this world, that you don't, that all of a sudden this money is coming in, and it's, you know, you work a job, and then there's spaces where you don't work, and in that time you build credit, and then you have to go back the next year to kind of pay back that credit, and you kind of get in this loop, and every year was the last year that I worked. Oh, this is going to be the last year. This is going to be the last year. But then, due to the kind of catch up with credit, you realize that you have to go back.
Do you think about climate change in your life?
Every day, probably for hours and hours a day when I'm following up on research and articles and all that sort of stuff.
I decided to do my own research. I went to the University of Winnipeg to talk to climatologist Danny Blair about the future of my city. Does climate change keep you up at night?
Climate change doesn't really keep me up at night, but it sure is on my mind a lot. What future we talk about really depends upon what carbon scenario we also talk about. So the higher carbon future is essentially the worst case scenario, at least I hope it is. It's a future where we really don't change the way that we use fossil fuels, and therefore the carbon content of the atmosphere just goes up and up and up as it's doing right now. The lower carbon future is one where we collectively, globally, take climate change more seriously and accordingly work hard to reduce our carbon emissions. Both of those scenarios result in a very different climate in the future, but the high carbon scenario definitely has a very different future in Manitoba and across the world. I worry about my family, my friends, my nieces and nephews and their kids. I worry about young people. I worry about where we're going, for sure.
I work with kids, and I wonder if they understand the problem that we are leaving them to deal with. The kids at Hugh John Macdonald School and I decided to make some stop-motion animations to try to understand.
People probably don't think about climate change because there's so much problems with the world going on right now. It's hard to focus on a lot of things, and people just usually focus on how their lives are going, but not the future generation.
So how do you guys think that will affect you? Do you guys who has air conditioning in their apartment or their house or their condo? I don't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be an old lady then.
Probably just stay inside.
Aw, you won't want to do that.
I never want to be old.
I never want to be old.
I want to be young forever.
That's not possible.
Unless if you have superpowers.
Try.
DJ is Chad's brother. He helped Chad get into the industry because the money is way better there than anywhere else.
You're never going to find money like that in Winnipeg or any city. It's the money is, it's something else.
I went from making maybe $12.50 an hour to making, I think the first year was $96,000. I think earlier on we were speaking about, you know, the cognitive dissonance in regard to that. It's very prevalent. That neocortical level will think anybody to rationalize themselves out of anything.
But you think climate change might be happening?
I don't think so. No, I think it's just a trend. I think it's just how it goes, right? Just warm. Some seasons are warmer than others. Some days are warmer than others. Some days are colder than others, right? You know, it just is what it is.
Let's say topics of climate change or something like that, you know, there's an automatic resistance to talking about anything like that simply because that's a threat to the livelihood of everybody working there. It was always on my mind. Threw me into major bouts of depression, and I'd have to quit working because I would burn out so quickly.
In the droughts in California, I heard about this special company that their job is to come in and spray paint people's grass green.
It's actually not a bad business idea. See, if it gets warmer here and the rain stops, I'll start spray painting lawns.
Would you like it if winter was warmer?
I would, but it wouldn't. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind. If there was no such thing as winter here, it'd be awesome, but I know it wouldn't be a good thing.
We're going to start to see what we think of as winter disappearing. We're going to lose certainly a lot of the really cold days that are one of the hallmarks of our winter, for better or for worse, the minus 30-degree days. So compared to what we have now, where we can rely upon frozen conditions for week after week after week after week in the wintertime, that's just not going to happen in the future in Winnipeg.
What's it usually look like in wintertime? Does it usually look like that?
No, it looks like.
There should have been snow on the trees everywhere.
Yeah. Do you think this would change your life in wintertime? Like, what would wintertime be like for you then?
Boring.
Boring?
Pretty mushy and watery.
Mushy?
And no one can have fun, like build a snow airplane.
You'll just be walking in rain boots.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be a rain boot kind of winter. By 2080, we're supposed to get like 40 or 50 plus 30 or more days. So, like...
Save me money heating the pool.
When it does come up, I'm frustrated that even my relatives, even the ones I love and who love me and understand what I do for a living, don't get it. In the far future, under the worst case scenario, the high carbon scenario, the average summer in southern Manitoba will be that of what we currently see in Oklahoma and northern Texas, the Texas Panhandle, let's call it. And that's remarkable to me as a climatologist. 40 degrees is a very uncommon temperature in the prairies right now. It's possible that we will see 50 degrees Celsius temperatures as the hottest temperature of the summer. I'm finding that a lot of people just are aghast at that. How could we possibly have the climate, the summer climate, that's currently in that place that we picture as desert-like?
Do you think we better do something about this?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the world is about to end.
Aw. What would you say to like a politician that thinks we don't need to do it right now?
I would probably say that he's not really doing his job very well.
You don't think there's anything we can do?
There's stuff we could do, but there's no money in it, so there's nobody going to be running to do anything, right? You know, until there's a lot of money for to be made to switch off of oil to go to solar or whatever else, nothing's going to happen.
So, is it that global warming or climate change isn't real, or is it just that there's no money in it being real?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
It's not really like a big thing that you think about, though.
I don't have any kids, so it doesn't bother me. No, I'm joking. No, I've never really put any thought into it. It's not something that I've ever thought about. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think you might think about it?
Well, now, yeah, probably I'd think about it a little more.
Thomas, it's really windy and stormy out.
Oh my God, my nose! Ah!
When we were on a little boating tour on the Red River, they're explaining the Great Flood, and Thomas got in a big panic because he thought that it was going to happen when we were right on the river. So I've been taking my time to explain some of the more impactful things in regard to climate change.
That makes sense.
Because I feel that even speaking about that flood that happened in the past was traumatic enough for him.
He's asking a lot of questions that are more specific, and I'm put in a position where I have to have answers, and at the same time not try and instill some crazy anxiety and fear for him so that he could still maintain some childhood joy and sense of stability. I have some very deep worries and anxiety for what the future will bring for my son living in that world, especially considering, what participation level that I was at, especially regarding working in the oil and gas industry. I wonder if one day he'll be like, why did you do that? Actually question me, and I'll have to answer him in some sort of way, and it'll be a trying conversation for sure.
This is my dad. This is me as a turtle. This is me as a butterfly. Woof, woof, woof.
Where's this turtle going?
To the future.
So the letter could start.
Dear whatever you are, bring this to the future. Because the future people want to see it.
We decided to bury a time capsule to recognize this conversation between Chad and his son and the future. It is a way of taking the questions Thomas might have forwards into the years to come. This film is also a time capsule. It's a way of taking the stories and choices and warnings onwards as our world changes.